hacked my cheating wife's phone, divorced her, and ruined her affair partner's life. It all started when I found my wife's burner phone. We had just switched internet providers, and our new modem came with an app to manage the network connections. One evening, I was scrolling through the app, casually checking the connected devices, when I noticed an unfamiliar Android phone. That was odd, we both had Apple devices. At first, I assumed it was someone who had guessed our Wi-Fi password, so I changed it immediately. But a few days later, the Android device reappeared. That's when I started paying closer attention. I worked from home, and one day, I noticed the mystery phone disappeared from the network the moment Sarah, my wife, left for work. Then, like clockwork, it popped back up as soon as she got home. I knew something was off. I searched her car, her purse, nothing. But that night, while she was in the shower, I checked her gym bag and finally found it, hidden in her briefcase. I didn't have time to unlock it, so I put it back. The next time she went to the gym, I went to retrieve it again, but it was gone. However, that night, it resurfaced in the same briefcase, and this time I took it. Trying her usual passwords didn't work, so I took the phone to a repair shop down the street. I'm a terrible liar, so I told the tech the truth. My gut told me my wife was cheating, and I needed to know. He must have felt bad for me because an hour later, he called me back and handed me a thumb drive. When I got home and plugged it in, my world shattered. The drive contained a backup of everything on her burner phone, texts, pictures, call logs, everything. It turns out Sarah had been having 2 affairs over the past 9 months. There were explicit conversations, details of their hookups, and even some photos I wish I could unsee. I felt like I was having a heart attack. My chest tightened, and I couldn't breathe. I just sat there at my computer, frozen, unable to process what I had just uncovered. When Sarah got home that evening, she was visibly anxious. She was wandering around the house, obviously looking for something. Her phone. Trying to keep calm, I casually asked if she was okay. She muttered something about misplacing some work papers and kept searching. That's when I decided to put an end to the game. I pulled the burner phone from my pocket and held it up. Is this what you're looking for? Her face went pale. She tried to recover quickly, saying she had no idea what I was talking about. I asked her straight up if she was cheating on me. Of course, she denied it. So, I handed her the phone and said, then unlock it. Her excuse? You're invading my privacy. That was all I needed to hear. I sat down, feeling another wave of panic, and tears welled up in my eyes. Seeing me break down must have triggered something in her because suddenly, she changed her story. She admitted to an affair, but only once, and she had ended it because she felt guilty. I pulled out my tablet, opened the files, and handed it to her. Only once, I repeated. The panic in her eyes grew as she scrolled through the messages and pictures. Sarah started crying, saying she was sorry, that it wasn't my fault, and that she wanted to fix things. She begged me to stay together and go to therapy. I told her I needed time to process everything and suggested we separate for a while. She refused, saying we needed to talk things out immediately. So I started asking the hard questions. Who are they? How did you meet? Where did you hook up? Did you use protection? She refused to answer and eventually yelled, enough, I can't do this anymore. She finally agreed to stay at her sister's for a few days while we figured things out. She suggested marriage counseling. I agreed, but what I didn't tell her was that I was already consulting a divorce attorney the next day. The next morning, I met with my lawyer and showed him everything. The texts, the photos, all the proof. He assured me this would be an easy divorce. Then, I started making moves, met with affair partner number 1's wife. Gave her all the evidence. She was devastated but grateful. She planned to serve divorce papers soon. Informed Sarah's sister, the one who had recently divorced her cheating husband. She was furious and said she'd deal with Sarah herself. Lawyer instructed me on what to do next. That evening, Sarah came to pick up some of her things. She still wanted to reconcile. She swore her affairs weren't about me, that she just liked the thrill of being with other people. She even suggested we could explore an open marriage to make things fair. I shut that idea down immediately. I didn't tell her about the divorce yet. I wanted her served when she least expected it. Sarah was blindsided when she was served at her office a week later. She called me an hour later, crying, begging me to reconsider. I told her point blank, this is the power shift. You had all the power before and now I'm taking it back. She kept trying to spin the situation, but I wasn't interested. Meanwhile, affair partner got served with divorce papers by his wife, and affair partner, well, let's just say I had a little fun with him. I stopped by the bar where he worked, had a drink, and casually mentioned to the bartender that I had just found out my wife had been cheating with 2 men. The bartender asked their names, and when I said John, he froze. Turns out John was standing right there. I turned, smiled, and said, "Be seeing you, John." Then I walked out. John got fired 2 days later. I swear I had nothing to do with it, just karma doing its thing. Final update. The divorce was finalized within a few months. Sarah lost the house, took on $111,000 of our shared debt, and was basically left with nothing. She begged for reconciliation until the very end, but I was done. She even made a public post on social media, confessing to her affairs, apologizing to me, and tagging her affair partners. It was her last-ditch attempt at damage control, but the damage was done. At the end of it all, I walked away with my dignity intact, a fresh start, and the satisfaction of knowing that karma had done its job. As for Sarah and her affair partners, well, let's just say they got exactly what they deserved. Cheaters think they can get away with anything until they don't. Sarah thought she had it all under control, but she didn't realize that her husband was about to become her worst nightmare. She lost her marriage, her family's respect, and the future she took for granted. Now, she's stuck living with the consequences of her betrayal. As for OP, he walked away like a true legend.